Hello and welcome. This is the film podcast. Why Won't It End? Two guys. I'm Josh. That's Charles.
No, we're doing why. Wait, what? We're doing When Will It End? Not Why Won't It End? Right?
Which one are we doing?
I thought we were doing American Pie.
What did I say?
You said Why Won't It End?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to When Will It End, the movie podcast where two guys. I'm Josh.
I gotta bleep that out.
That's Charles.
They're not paying.
I introduced the Patreon.
They're not paying a
Whoopsie.
dime. They're not allowed to hear you say Why Won't It End? That's exclusive. That's behind the paywall. What are paywall subscribers going to say?
If you're not paying for the Patreon and you heard that absolute top shelf platinum content, you should be hopping onto Venmo.
Wait,
shooting me, I don't know, about $1.50 seems fair. $1.50.
Well, after watching these, how about just as up it to 20?
Well, I mean, because the beginning of a podcast is exciting because you're like, there's so much potential here. Anything could happen.
Especially our podcast.
And then it being us, usually like, 5 or 10 minutes in, you're like, okay, I think I get what's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Kind of the same feeling I had watching this fucking American Pie Presents: The Book of Love.
Wait, really? I had the opposite. I was like, had a cold sweat as I pressed play on my pirated version of American Pie Presents: The Book of Love.
Surely you speak of the John Putsch film from 2009.
Yeah, and I also realized that there's no colons. So we've been saying these all wrong. Like it's just
there is a colon. I'm looking at it right now on the cover of the DVD, perhaps. Which, by the way, oversells Jim's dad's involvement for the first 2/3 of the film. There's a colon on IMDb, and as a certified film geek, IMDb is like my Bible.
I mean, you were going to change your name to IMDb, right?
If IMDb is the Bible, J.J. Abrams is Jesus, God is Steven Spielberg, and the Holy Ghost is black and white movies.
That's good, yeah.
Because they're old.
Yeah, and ghosts are old, I guess.
Yeah, ghosts are old. So, I got to say, there's a lot of reasons why people would watch the fourth straight direct-to-video American Pie franchise installment, but let's be real. It's the Bug Hall of it all, okay? You see Bug Hall on the marquee, and you're just hustling. You're like, I got to catch some of that Bug Hall heat.
Well, you might also be confused if they're like, wait, does this theater also have a Bug Hall? I've been dying to get into one of those Bug Halls. And then they go in.
Do you think that there's a reality where someone saw the film, the direct-to-video film, American Pie Presents: The Book of Love starring Bug Hall in a space called Bug Hall?
I mean, I'm just imagining bugs everywhere, so it is a terrifying experience. But I mean, honestly, the American Pie Presents brand has been mostly a terrifying experience, so I think that's right on point.
And this one had two scenes that really upset me, like really profoundly made me sad and upset.
I want to hear about them
that.
Because I want to just have a general airing of overall emotional badges, because this has been an experience. The last two movies have been so disgusting, so distasteful, such an American movie that I left this movie feeling much lighter than I have so far in the series.
I hear what you're saying because, look, the best parts of this movie get back to what we like about the American Pie franchise, that ultimately people have to behave better because being a huge prick and being sexist and objectifying, all of those things are bad and they shouldn't be rewarded. And obviously, with both The Naked Mile and Beta House, we got into a situation where we saw a lot of awful behavior, completely unquestioned, even promoted actively, with no comeuppance, no sense of growth, and just like this vile, depraved, like nihilism that made me really upset spiritually. And again, you may recall in our last episode, I did argue that Beta House, well, one, should be stomped from the earth and all of its members killed and their ashes scattered to the winds and the ground upon which they were born salted, but also a convincing argument for the lack of a Christian God. So this was not as, it didn't like dwell in that horror, but the moments that were upsetting were so upsetting, so that you have this like bizarre spiking effect.
Yeah.
That I found even more disorienting because the inconsistency made it more shocking.
I think what we've found as a pattern is when a movie is most like unnerving and just upsetting, it's when the filmmakers don't realize what they're showing to us is awful. And in the case of the last two movies, the entire premise has been awful, and that hasn't been the focus, and that's what we've sort of liked in the first 3 movies, was that as movies about teens trying to have sex, it's mostly about teens trying to be better people. And what I like is this is a return to that. But as you said, there's some strange homophobia in this movie. There's very weird rape shit going on that the filmmakers are
The newest Stifler is violently raped by a digital moose. It was harrowing. I was so unprepared for that. And it was really dark. And then the line, "It feels like I gave birth to a mayonnaise jar."
It's pretty funny.
So obviously that I found deeply upsetting.
And I think that's the thing is when the filmmakers make a joke or even just have an entire film be sort of uncaring about these ideas, and like they just throw in rape and homophobia jokes just because they think they can, that's when it becomes problematic. And I think the first 3 had doses of homophobia. I don't think it really, I mean, I guess it had doses of like unconsensual filming in the first one. But the whole point of those, even if it's complicated, it's not quite as sick, because the whole point of those scenes is to show that these people are not great and they're trying to grow and be better.
No, I hear you. So like we're back to that comfortable territory where, for example, the character Lube, because, of course, this movie features a character whose name is just Lube.
So that was the confusing part.
Brandon Hardesty.
Most movies so far have had Stifler, who's a real name, and he turns into the Stiffmeister. We have Koozman, who turns his strangely Coos-related last name just into Coos. Here in the credits...
Well, no.
I mean, unless you have a different...
No. His name is Lubinsky. He signs the yearbook, the Book of Love at the end. Do you even watch these fucking movies?
No.
Am I doing all of the work
You're
here?
You're doing everything. Yeah, I just pretended.
Well, let me get back to what I was saying before you crudely interrupted
just
me
the
to
credits.
say something inaccurate about the film.
I've had IMDb... It is our fucking church. Oh. It is where I go to pray every Sunday.
No, it's the Bible.
Sorry,
Church is the Regal Cinema at the mall.
Okay, all right. But I bring IMDb with me, and I pray from the pages of IMDb, the digital pages.
Right, to Jesus, J.J. Abrams. Okay.
But I wanted to say, I've just had...
No, you interrupted my point.
It's a quick point. It's a quick point.
Oh, God damn it.
I'm just saying, I had problems with Oscar in the 4th one where he was listed. He wasn't even listed on IMDb until the very bottom, and then he says uncredited. Here, IMDb just has Brandon Hardesty as playing Lube. I didn't know his name was Lubinsky or whatever.
That's your own fucking fault. Just shut up.
It is. I just wish that there was somebody...
Speaking of Oscar, remember when black people spoke in these movies?
Uh-huh. Yes,
I think it's been like 3 straight movies of almost no people of color speaking. And that is definitely... Like, come on. Like, you can still be as homophobic and sexist and horrifically, amoral and at least have some diversity. I guess in the Beta House there are people of color, but they're, again, I would hesitate to say that they are being depicted in a respectful manner.
No, I think they were all, using the Asian stereotype as being good at math. But no, I you could use the American Pie Presents series, except for the 4th one, which I think in the last episode, it's still going to remain part of the top for me as we look back fondly and not so fondly on this whole series. But this series has been 2, 3, and 4 of the like sub-series, a textbook. You could teach an entire college course on the importance of diversity in filmmaking just by looking at these alone, where there are literally no speaking parts. This one had there was the guy who liked anal sex, the black student who liked anal sex, and the black pastor.
No, that's in church. Well, first off, this is incredibly depressingly Sherman Hemsley's final film before dying. Which
do you think that added?
Heartbreaking.
That just sort of did him in?
Well, I mean, again, it's like you bring in one iconic black actor of the 20th century. He calls no one a honky, and then clearly shot all of his scenes in isolation, standing behind a... That's why I'm not going to give like this movie the benefit of calling him a character. He shows up to be the black pastor who...
Right.
It sucks. And yes, one of the 2 churchgoers who thinks it's awesome that someone said the phrase anal sex who high five. So yes, representation in its finest. Can I please get back to the point I was making like half an hour ago? You're such a shit.
No.
Yes.
Because, There's still something else.
No, Lubinsky
is the only other mention of a black. The only other mention of a black character
so the lady
is
Amy
when
says,
she says, "Oh, I've only had sex with 7 people."
So it's important.
And he's like, "Wait, it's only been 6."
Kind of
and he's like, "Well, a black person."
Because in the last film, Beta House, he would have gone on
a black
and
person
celebrated for that.
Was in there, so that counts as 2.
Wow, that was a bad line to go out on.
That's what I'm saying. That was like I wrote that down as how insulting. Like, how does that pass in a modern script?
I don't pay you to write.
But no, I'm just saying, how does that pass? Fucking, I only slept with 6 people, and the comeback is, well, one of them was black, so that counts as 2 people.
Wait, that was in the movie? What? I missed that.
Wait, do you watch these movies?
Oh, God damn it. You're doing all the work. I'm sorry.
Yeah, she's like, remember when they're in the car, and she's like, I'm saving myself now for Jesus or whatever. And he's like, you fucked 7 people in one day. And she's like, it was only 6. First of all, that whole scene sucks anyway. And then it gets to the final moment where she says, I only slept with 6. And he says, yeah, but one of them was black, so that counts as 2.
Yeah, which is lazy racism, too. And the laziness of these movies is, I think, what ultimately gets to me is that, like, we've talked about this. The limits of the imagination of these movies are thin, blonde white women making out or having their boobs out. And that's like, they mention anal sex. We don't get other than, Stifler being raped by Digital Moose, which, by the way, reminded me very much of Holy Motors. And maybe
Yes.
it was a tip of the hat to, Kara and the film, the world of film and identity and, what the digital, the physical, it's really beautiful, the inference there to, experimental French film. But yeah, the cowardice of these movies where the bit in this movie is we keep cutting to Lube, we kind of love Lube, his fantasies. And his fantasies are like, again, we talked about, when I was texting you, we talked about how whenever anyone is sad, they go upstairs at a party,
Yes.
for example. The escalation of every fantasy in these movies and now it's the same thin blonde woman, but she's in light S&M gear. And we get that again.
And the hair.
With Ashley.
Lube loves hair blowing in the wind.
But it's not just Lube. This is just perennially in these films. Like, it in a way is homogenizing and colonizing. I'll go as far to say that, no matter how irresponsible or out of context that word is being used, like of imagination. Like everyone has the same, like it just drives me crazy that this movie felt so generic in almost every way.
Well, so I think we both did a very bad job of watching these movies, but I think all the fantasies are Lube's fantasies.
No, I know. I'm saying over the whole series of movies.
Okay, no, but I was saying in this certain movie, I actually liked that as showing why Lube is a problematic character. The only times we see boobs in this movie, no, that's not true. That's
not true at all. You're
the
dead
scene where
wrong.
they go into the
fool.
You're right. Yeah, there's a couple of scenes, but most of the boob stuff.
Did you notice that they played the same "This Bed Is on Fire" song in this one?
Yeah, I did, and they had pie.
What's up with that?
Well, they were trying to bring it back, and I think overall it was much closer to the first movie than it was to the 5th movie or the 6th movie. I do feel like this was, this is about people being better. People, it's shitty. It's not great, but it is about at the end boys learning how to respect women.
Right, but 5 and 6 just went full tilt, like tired rehash of college sex as opposed to this return to high school sex. And look, I think Andre Del Morte of Collider put it best when he wrote that this film is essentially an excuse to show topless women, but anyone who rents the 4th direct-to-video sequel to American Pie is probably aware of this.
But I think, so to get back to Lube, most of the boob stuff in this movie, with the exception of the weird changing scene and the sex scene where he vomits on her back, I think everything else was Lube fantasizing about the girls and women in front of him. And it's so extreme, the one where he like fantasizes about, I don't remember their fucking names. His like,
I want to say Nathan is the very boring.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Nathan, who is the Kevin surrogate for this part of the franchise, in real life is named Kevin, which says so much about Kevin H. Horton plays Nathan Jenkel.
Scott Stifler is played by John Patrick Jordan, which is sort of strangely similar to
Sean William Scott.
Yeah.
And by the way, this Stifler I found the most unnerving because like his weird his like dead eyes. We have to get to Scott Stifler. He is a horrifying. Yeah. This family must be stopped.
Before we move on, I just want to say I like that the final scene where he is he imagines what's her name? Nathan. I got the list up here. Nathan's girlfriend. What was her name? Was she
Dana? Are you fucking kidding me?
Hold on, I got to read through these. Is it Dana?
It's Dana. Dana. It's Dana.
Okay. And then he like enlarges her tits in his mind. I think like that, I believe, was just like a joke on how fucked up he is that he can't even like imagine a normal person's tits. He has to do so, like he has to make them giant and overdone. And I think by the end, when he falls out of the ski lift and he like actually thinks about, like goes back and like, I've been friends with you since we were in middle school together. And I remember all these things that like you actually brought me joy to my life. And I sort of want to try that with you. It actually like, and then we don't see any more fantasies from him. I think those were like moments of him being gross and being a bad person to the extreme. But you're being
so generous to this shitty movie where it's just such a cake and eat it too situation that it's not worth giving any credit. Like, yes, I'm happy the movie doesn't end with like Lube like stepping into his full delusion and entering some kind of fugue state where he just lives in an endless orgy of like naked boobs getting blown by the same Quebecois prostitutes as his friend or something, and just gives himself up to fantasy. I'm not really sure if like, yes, thank God he he humanizes women and tries to relate them as people. Like, but like again, that's the slightest amount of credit you can possibly give a movie this stupid.
Well, I don't know. I don't even really know how this is that much different than one, other than that the characters aren't as fun.
It's different than one because I would say they make more of an effort in this movie to have Heidi, Dana, Ashley, and the mysterious Imogen, the British student.
Yeah.
Who, that whole subplot I was confounded by. She's essentially doing a riff on fucking Natasha Lyonne from the first movies, of like the weirdly experienced girl who knows everything and is British again, which I found odd. But they don't really give those characters. I mean, it felt way more like the last couple movies where they're like, look, you just got to lose your virginity now, bitch. Do it now. Like the first few movies, like I feel like, you know, certainly the first movie, Tara Reid and Natasha Lyonne's characters and their interactions are really crucial to the center of the movie. And in this, it's so clearly shoehorned in, and they're just eager to get more and more opportunities to do like this stupid gross out stuff that I'm not going to give it credit for that because it's clearly a half-assed effort.
I'm willing to give it some credit. Maybe that's just because I've watched two really terrible things in a row with this series, to have like a scene where the sort of shy Finch-like person not be very confident and try to just have sex with what was her name? Amy, maybe? The cheerleader?
You're fucking terrible. Ashley, Jesus Christ. Hold on. The whole point of Finch is that we see him as a classy intellectual. And so, like, yes, it would ruin that character if all we saw was him, like, imagining his friend's girlfriend naked and her boobs expanding in front of his very eyes. No. And to quote R.L. Schaefer, you know, the film series had lost its original thoughtful and heartfelt tone. And although this film attempts to bring some of that back, it is, quote, too little too late. And Mr. Schaefer, I agree.
I mean, I would just bring up Finch because I just believe, as you said, Nathan is this one's Kevin. I do think that Lube is the Finch, if we were to like correlate. So we have Rob as Jim. Again, we don't get an Oz. And then we get, I think Lube is pretty similar in a lot of ways to a Finch.
I don't agree.
No, you don't think so? He's like sort of scheming. He has plans to do things like.
But Lube is so like gross and shitty, and Finch is not. Finch is classy. That's the whole part of Finch. You're just think because he has glasses and is chubby
until he takes a giant shit. Where's the class there?
Well, but that's the point. Finch is embarrassed about that. He's not proud of that.
Right. No, but I'm just saying he does have schemes in a very disrespectful way to
Finch
lie.
Finch would never write a come on line to a $100 bill and hurl it at a woman at a dance.
That is
Finch would never do that. You bite your tongue, sir. I have not watched 7 of these movies for you to turn around and impugn Finch.
All right, fine.
Leave
Lube
Finch
is
alone.
Lube. Lube is himself. There's no correlation.
Let Lube be Lube. Let Finch be Finch.
I find out. Let
Has this
Finch be
series
Finch.
ruined us? Are we just fucking... Have we lost our minds?
Yes.
This is too much.
I am defending. I am sitting here talking to you, and I am defending
my mind.
American Pie Presents.
We've done too many of
The
these.
Book of Love. I'm thinking.
I can't believe how bad an idea this was. Like, I feel like I've lost myself.
Do you know what my Letterboxd review for this movie was?
What?
After watching Beta House, I almost gave this movie 5 stars.
And that is a sign that we've broken you.
Yes,
certainly.
that's what I'm feeling. Is like I'm so refreshed to not have rape and misogyny and white hegemony just like thrown into my face. And I'm like, oh, at the end of the movie, Eugene Levy gives a great speech on respecting women, and everything else after that is great because it's natural. Like I feel so wholesome right now.
Well, no, the movie ends on child pornography played for laughs. The movie ends on after Cody, the horrible younger brother of the main character, Rob, who has all the charisma of a guy named Bug Hall in real life. He gets revenge on Cody by filming him sucking his own dick with a vacuum, which he uploads to the internet, and then 10 million people view. And that's the joke, that someone watched a preteen use a vacuum to masturbate. So the joke seems to be that he has unleashed an army of pederasts onto his younger brother as the ultimate comeuppance, which feels more like a Dennis Cooper twist than a fucking, clever little wink. So...
But I think that's what this mistakenly enters into Dennis Cooper realm. Just because it's so fucking stupid. It's like,
well, hold on.
Oh, that's sort of funny. Kid using a vacuum.
It's not just stupid, but it's similarities to Dennis Cooper and the macabre world he inhabits, which, brilliantly, may I add. If you've never read Dennis Cooper, I would say maybe find a nice, warm, safe, quiet place and sit down and read any one of his brilliant books. The Marbled Swarm, I think, is one of the best books I've ever read. But this movie has a scene so genuinely shocking that I was like really upset. But okay, so we have to get into a huge goof in the movie that I found to be, Charles, I found this to be upsetting. As a lover of cinema,
found a goof to be upsetting?
Yes, because I think what we can do with the moving picture show that we call the movies is that we can find a deeper truth in the lived experience of humanity. Am I wrong? Am I just a star-eyed, a pie-eyed dreamer here?
Okay, here's the thing. There's that, and then there are tits. You did forget about tits.
It's great to have those in movies. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that in the hands of a J.J. Abrams, a Spielberg, a black and white movie, we understand more about ourselves and what it's like to grow up Jewish and in the suburbs and white. In this movie, they follow the Book of Love's instructions to go to a whorehouse in Canada. Now, let me draw you a map with my hands.
Okay.
Over here is Michigan.
I see it. Yep.
Michigan is below Ontario. Ontario is not a French-speaking part of Canada.
I know. I knew you were going to say this. I knew that. I noticed this too.
Quebec is not near Michigan.
No.
You have to drive through Toronto.
It's north of Maine.
Well, it's north of many things, including Massachusetts and New York.
But I'm just saying, like, it is on the East Coast.
Right. So I was very confused as to why specifically they had to go to Quebec and how it's never addressed in the film. Because when they go to the border guard, played, of course, by Kevin Federline.
He did a great job.
Fucking Americans. I was confounded. So clearly they drive to cross the border and they're full of pep at that point. And then they drive for another 10 hours or something. I don't know. That was an unforgivable goof. And I was quite upset by that. And I haven't checked the goofs page. Let's see. Did any sharp-eyed? Yes. Okay. Errors in geography. 3 of 6 found this interesting. East Great Falls is supposed to be in Michigan, but they drive to a Canadian border crossing that is not over a bridge or through a tunnel. None of the border crossings in Michigan look like that one. Additionally, they go to a ski resort in Canada with a gondola, and there are no resorts of that nature near Michigan, as there are no mountains that size in southern Ontario. These features suggest British Columbia, and the frequency of the French language suggests Quebec, neither of which are anywhere near Michigan. You tell me how these people, these pieces of shit who made this movie, expect to piss in our fucking eyes like this, and we just take it?
It's unforgivable. I mean, you have this in this very scene. You have once again an old woman killed by cum.
Right. This was so upsetting. To me.
But you know what? That gravitas of the woman being killed by cum and then punched in the head with a phone.
Hold on. Okay, you're zooming right through this.
Well, I just want to say that could have landed, but because I was so like, where the fuck am I? Is this Quebec? Is this Ontario? Is this British Columbia? I couldn't even really focus on what was going on in the whorehouse. I agree. It took me out of it too. You're just blowing through the most upsetting thing I've seen in a long time. They go to this whorehouse in, imaginary French-speaking Ontario, which is bullshit. And also, they get through the border with just their driver's license, and only 2 of them give over their driver's licenses.
I think they all hand over the driver's licenses, but I agree. Like I've had my car searched at least a couple times going over the border.
But I'm just saying, you need a passport to get across the country, don't you?
Well, they could have enhanced licenses.
In 2009?
Yes, they live in Michigan. They're a border state. Shut up.
Oh, come on. I live in Maine. I didn't even heard of one of those till this year.
They get to the magical whorehouse. You're from southern Maine. They get to the magical whorehouse, and they go to sleep with Monique. It turns out, of course, the joke is she's very old and has huge fake breasts. It's very funny. Ha, 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 ha. She starts giving Rob a good old-fashioned gum job and tweaking his nipples with her fake teeth. And so far, I'm like, yeah, this is the classic setup for comedy. I get it.
Yeah.
So Eric, excuse me, I'm confusing my various completely generic leads of these movies. Rob blows his load in Monique's mouth, as one does, getting a ripe old gum job, and apologizes for coming so quickly, which, again, is a hallmark of the series. He also came all over the underwear that Ashley shoved in his pants at Victoria's Secret, so he's just coming right and left.
And gives them to her without warning.
Yeah, it's not a good message for people. Don't do that. People don't like that. He then looks down and realizes that the sex worker is dead, and in the rigor mortis, and this is so fucking chilling, has attached herself to his dick. So her corpse is frozen on his erect penis. They then attempt to pry her off of him, and then as her son enters the room, are bludgeoning her corpse with like a phone attached to his penis. It is just nightmares. Like, I'm not going to sleep tonight. I hated this. This was so upsetting.
Yeah,
Imagine you're walking into the whorehouse your mom works at to see her corpse frozen to a penis being just battered by a bunch of fucking high schoolers. That's like more upsetting than any David Lynch movie. That's more upsetting than like, did Pasolini do a one scene of this movie or something? Are they nationalism?
And that's the thing, is that I've already talked about this, but like, this is what this movie doesn't understand with the moose rape joke, with the punching a corpse joke, with, there's got to be other ones, but just like, they choose to joke about things that are so awful that it doesn't actually enter into the realm of comedy. You're just like, why is this fucking little dipshit punching a dead woman with a phone? And I just like, yeah, it was very cringy, which both the Canadian men, they both look silly. One of them's wearing the big hat and the other one looks like a complete moron. They both say fucking Americans, and I sort of wonder if the brand of American Pie, like maybe the filmmakers are so aware of what they're doing that they have created these situations where 2 different Canadian men can utter under their breaths or screaming with a shotgun, fucking Americans. And maybe that is the message of this entire franchise.
So you're saying maybe this is like a Lars Van Trier style Dogville thing.
Yes.
By depicting Americans as like necrophilic nymphomaniacs who can't control their lust and desire. Huh.
So they finally they drive across the border to this magical Canada, which the filmmakers, once again, they realize where Michigan is, they know where Quebec is, they know where Ontario is, and they know where British Columbia is in real life. And said, sort of like in High School Musical 3, when Sharpay is singing about her exploits in the world, and there's that fake city where everything exists all at once. These filmmakers have created a Canada that just sort of represents all of Canada, where they can have 2 people almost spoken into the camera at us while they like, there's a glint in their eyes, they peer into my very soul and say, fucking Americans.
So by offering us this collage-like vision of a heavenly Canada, which is not located geographically, but rather created in this liminal space that we experience.
Yeah, spiritually, emotionally. This
right, we're not present on the ground in Canada. We are in the space of quote-unquote Canada.
Yeah, lowercase c.
Right.
Or all caps.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that, where this is like this. They didn't know they were going to make the reunion, American Reunion. That was what? This is 2009. American Reunion is 2012.
We've got years to wait.
So this was the end, and I feel like this is the last lap. This is the punchline to 7 movies where you get to see Americans having huge problems with sex, whether they figure them out or not. The first 3 are sort of nice, but they're all like based on stereotypes. They're based on marriage being interesting and exciting. Oh, I'm sorry, you're about to get married. Fuck. Sorry, hold on. You can just forget I said that.
It's fun to get married. I haven't done it yet, but so far it's been great.
Yeah. And then you just sort of build through, and then we like really get to this underbelly of. I'm glad you mentioned earlier, like we returned to high school. I think college is a very hard. For some reason, we can sort of talk about sex when it has to do with high schoolers because it's about them learning about sex. When you get to college, it's either boring or so fucked up, and it's just like you're so aware of how fucked up American sex is.
The idea of sex before you've had it is exotic and scary and exciting and X, Y, and Z. And, now that I'm like 30 and, I've doled down the edges of my sad little life into like, more of a burrito-like edge, I would argue at this point, like a warm, soft tortilla. This movie had like a veritable waterfall of breasts, which surely a Josh in middle to high school would have been watching with rapturous attention, just like staring at those sweet, sweet titties. And now I'm like, yeah, there sure are a lot of breasts in this. Like, that's my honest takeaway. I was like, that's a lot of breasts.
Have you ever... So we've, again, gone through 7 of these now, and especially the Naked Mile, but this one and the last one, too. Like, it's sort of at, that point where you, like, say a word over and over and over again until it loses all meaning? Like, this is what they've done. They've just thrown so many breasts into a movie where it's just, like, it does that thing. It's almost as though I've aged, like, as though if I had been in high school watching these, if I watched all of these in a day, I would have made it to 35-year-old Charles, where I'm just like, oh, it's just a boob.
Yeah.
And they've done that to me in the course of 5 movies.
Yeah. Just the oversaturation and the diminishing returns. It's just, and also the boob enlargement effect that they apply to Dana through Lube's dream is so crude and poorly done. Certainly compared to Dude, Where's My Car, which came out almost a decade before this. I think it's quite impressive at the end. The digital breast augmentation that happens in real time compared to this, which looked like someone did like a crude zoom in on a browser window. And then, like,
it's really bad.
It's just like terrible. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is a direct-to-DVD.
I know, but it seems like they put. I mean, look, let's talk about the cameos. Tim Matheson does a cameo.
Who's that?
Tim Matheson, Otter from Animal House and a million other things, including
Whoa.
on The West Wing, he plays the vice president. Ooh.
There's that guy from that band. He was in it.
Bret Michaels, and of course Dustin Diamond, Sneak from Time to Go to High School with Zach Morris, and C. Thomas Howell, Christopher Knight, just a lot of classic. Richard Romanus from Fast Times. And speaking of Fast Times and that guy, I thought that the lady stalking Scott Stifler was going to tell him that she was pregnant.
So that's what. So I want to bring it back. I sort of got interrupted when I was talking about Ashley just because I couldn't remember her character's name. I liked the scene where she's like, Lube, you're fine, but I don't want to fuck you, and it's not going to happen. I like that she's like, she just like calls it as it is, and I like how at the end, it's not like, she's not pregnant. She's like, you were mean to me. You treated me poorly. You had sex with me, and then you left, and you basically abused me. You lied to me, and all I want is an apology.
But she gets so much more when Stifler is
we can't go there
raped
yet.
by a moose. We've already gone there. But he's raped by a moose. You can't. I didn't know that was going to happen, man.
No, it should be on the. It should be somewhere that you're going to watch a digital moose rape a boy. I don't really. I've gone back and forth. I know we've had conversations about trigger warnings. I don't really know where I stand anymore, but maybe we should have them because maybe I do want to know that a 3D CGI moose is going to rape a boy.
Yes. I'm relatively sexually untraumatized by the standards of our nightmare culture, and I found that very upsetting. But yes, I hear what you're saying. The point is that there is comeuppance. There is like a female character articulating, I'm a person, I deserve empathy and humanity, and fuck you for not offering that. I'm also happy that was included. Though again, Lube was ultimately rewarded. Scott Stifler is then raped and then allowed to grope a woman as a bit later in the movie.
So bad.
And it's like, what is the message here?
Yes.
Like, rape is him getting raped by a moose is revenge for him being a dick, and then he gropes someone and then sort of like she laughs it off. Like, come on.
Let's talk about Stifler.
Do both.
Because Stifler, I've never really liked the Stifler household, but this is the worst. This is worse than Eric. He is worse than Dwight, even though those people they are reprehensible and they live in a world that is like them. But here we have someone who's got that awful laugh, who all he cares about is fucking girls, and there's no comeuppance. And in fact, he doesn't learn anything. He just like is this rock of bullshit that I think if you'd taken him out of the movie, it would have been a much, much, much better movie. It actually might have been a watchable movie because you would have gotten rid of the moose rape scene, and you would have gotten rid of a character that has a flat arc that just remains as a pillar of rape.
But also the performance by John Patrick Jordan is like weirdly dead-eyed and sociopathic, and reminds me more of like this like horrible nightmare demon like reenacting like a version of Stifler, but like from hell.
You sent me those pictures of a thick mall. Like, I don't know. There's sort of like a thick
Charles,
mall vibe.
Imagine you're a listener.
Yeah. Okay.
What are you talking about?
Well, you just sent me those pictures of a thick mall.
I said it as a joke to a friend. Imagine what Darth Maul's cock looks like. And I was like, that's got to be out there. So I did some research, and I found some photos of what people presume Darth Maul's penis would look like. The best of which is a very, not rotund, but sort of circular, thick Maul who's sort of like bellowing while erupting an absolute geyser of semen with his nipples pierced. And that is what Charles was referring to incredibly obliquely as thick Maul, which, again, with no context, must sound like absolute fucking gibberish. But yes, so Scott Stifler, and here's how he's described on the Wikipedia page. Scott Stifler is a fictional character from the American Pie series of teen comedy films. His obnoxious behavior, everlasting sex drive, and frequent insults are more in common with his elder cousins, Steve and Dwight, than Eric and Matt. Though Matt, I would argue, also quite obnoxious and horny and insulting. So he ultimately comes full circle in band camp, but he certainly starts in column A, I would argue.
For me, I would pair Steven and Matt together because they're both gross, but by the end of their arcs, they sort of learn to be better. And then I would put Scott
and Dwight must be killed.
Scott and Dwight and Eric. I think Eric is as bad as the others because he looks. True. Not only does he look up to them, he doesn't. This is like the whole anytime anyone's like, oh, like Biden or whoever was recently like, or I think it was Kamala. She's like, bad cops make good cops. I don't know what the fuck she said. Like bad cops make good cops. It's hard. It's so hard for good cops when there's bad cops around. Anyway, there's no such thing as a good cop because if you want to say Eric's not as bad, why isn't he trying to stop?
This is a tortured connection, but I admire that you're taking it to this level. I hear what you're saying.
I'm just saying, why isn't he doing something to stop his fucking evil cousins from doing all this shit?
Well, okay, so I would say to map this out a little bit, I would say Eric is lawful evil.
Yes.
Like, Eric is just boring and, like, the kind of, like, Nazi bureaucrat who just follows orders. Like, he learns nothing. He's just, like, follows the horrible example of his elders, and it sucks. Like, it's not neutral. He is participating in evil. He's just doing it in this, like, sort of, like, boring, banal way.
Wait, do you want to do a Stifler grid? A Stifler D&D
We're doing
grid?
it right now.
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm saying, all right.
Now, this is where it gets... So, Dwight and Scott... I would say Scott is true evil. Like, he's not even chaotic. He's just sort of like this cold, dead-eyed,
what's the
evil, malevolent force.
I thought you only had...
Because Dwight is chaotic evil.
So wait, wouldn't that mean that... I would say Eric is neutral evil then. Because what you have is you have lawful, chaotic, and neutral.
Yes.
So I would say a lawful evil is they're just doing it. And a neutral evil is an Eric who is allowing... he's bad. But he's not
so Scott is lawful evil. Eric is neutral evil. Dwight is chaotic evil because he's just obviously like a monster pig who just runs rampant across the world. We must stop Dwight. And then Matt, and here's where it gets complicated.
Yes.
Chaotic good.
I think so. Because especially he is the best of the Stiflers for me, other than maybe Stifler's mom, who I think is just lawful good.
Oh, we didn't do Scott.
Yeah, we did.
No, we didn't do Scott.
Oh, yes. I think Scott's got to be in the evil. Scott's got to be just like...
well, but he has a redemptive arc. So I guess generously by the end, he's chaotic good.
He doesn't have a redemptive arc because he like gropes a woman as his final moment in the film.
No, that's Scott. I'm talking about Steve. I'm so confused. Are you listening to how insane we are?
I thought you said
so
Scott.
Dark.
Okay, so
we've just like lost all of our humanity watching the American Pie movies. Like,
Josh, the listeners want us to finish. We have to finish.
We don't have to. We're going to. We don't have to, but we're going to. We don't have to. Okay, let's just get off
No, we have to finish. There's so many Stiflers out there.
We have to finish.
We have Stifler's dad, Eric Stifler's dad, who is lawful evil. I think most of them are just lawful evil.
Right, but Dwight is chaotic evil because, like, No, he is kind of lawful though, because the Beta House is a structure of some sort.
Yeah, but he plays the hazing. It's much more chaotic than a regular hazing routine.
But no, hold on. Okay, I figured it out. Original Stifler is chaotic evil. He doesn't really seem to have a plan for anything. He's just a lunatic. Dwight and ultimately Eric are lawful evil because the Beta House as a structure provides like a direction for their evil into this fraternity culture. Okay. Matt is chaotic good because he actually learns a lesson and we like him. And again, performance-wise, Tad Hinkleblinker's performance in that is like fucking Laurence Olivier compared to this shit. And then Scott Stifler is neutral evil. He's just like a dead-eyed malevolence that has no purpose or direction.
Absolutely, yeah, I would agree with all that.
Wow, okay, you know what? I was feeling like a desperate lunatic a minute ago, but now I feel like we've really accomplished something now that we've set out the alignment chart for the Stifler cousins.
And you know what this means? I have Thursday off. I get to make a little thing in Photoshop.
This is great.
To share with all of our listeners.
Everyone, thanks for listening. This is good. Okay, let's turn now to complicated presence in the franchise. We must, of course, turn to the Jim's Dad update. Now, as listeners recall, in our last episode, we sort of fell out of love with in Beta House, again, a cancer on society that just fouls everything it touches. Even Jim's dad was dragged down into the depravity and the amoral nihilism of Beta House. In this movie, important new canonic information is revealed about Jim's dad. Namely, one, he owns a carpet business in addition to working at the band camp, being a lawyer, and being, I'm not even sure. He's had so many occupations.
Right.
But he owns a carpet business.
Yeah, it's not clear what his business was in the initial franchise. And I like that. I like that he was just Jim's dad. Obviously he had a job because he has a nice house, or maybe he just inherited something. I don't know what he did. But he was Jim's dad. He was in the credits as Jim's dad. That was his role. We did not need his occupation.
Right. And more importantly, we discover in this movie, which is a canonic thing I actually kind of liked, Jim's dad wrote the Book of Love.
Yes.
Okay? We're bringing it all back to the first fucking movie.
Yes.
Because Jim's dad, again, in this deity-like presence in this series, who just seems to be omnipotent and omnipresent, was there for the genesis of one of the great tomes of the carnal human experience, the Book of Love.
So the problem is, in order to have him be in these movies now, they need to give him a role. Where before being Jim's dad, Jim was in the movie, it would make sense that he would talk, Jim's dad would show up, and he was beautiful in all of them. I think so far 3 has been, like, where he becomes the dad, and the dad part of the story was so good. He was at his most Jim's dad. But now, like, they're trying to just, like, shoehorn him in, and I think he worked in band camp because they're like, oh, my daughter-in-law can't be here anymore, so I took over. Cool, that makes sense. It's like still makes sense that he's a part of the family. Now he just like he's a fucking lawyer for these scumbags, and then now he becomes a carpet salesman because I guess it's just a joke about
like carpet eating, I guess, or something?
Yeah.
Is that the joke?
I think that's it. I did like his little car, though, that was fully carpeted from steering wheel to tires. Yeah, that was good.
Well, I liked it because it gave us an opportunity to go fully into his world for a little bit, which I really enjoyed. And when they're recompiling the water-damaged Book of Love, and we just sort of turn the center of this carpet warehouse into like a fucking, like, you know, war room of sex advice. That was, I thought, like, I liked that. I liked
it was
that
good.
His emotional reaction to seeing the Book of Love was so
yes,
like real and emotional and intense. I love Eugene Levy. He's the best. God, that was great.
So he's back, and I am sort of glad that he was bad in the last one because I don't think anything should survive Beta House. And I do appreciate that he was fully corrupted because it makes sense. Everything was corrupted by that. And now we have a new movie where it has much more of a heart of American Pie. And I don't think he's as good as he was in the first American Pie movie, but he's got his magic. He doesn't blunder around and like, he's not quite the Jim's dad, but you know what? It's been years and he's grown up too.
I don't know. I found him very smooth and enjoyable in this. Like
oh yeah.
I liked his performance. And also, look, obviously, we're a long way from the writing of Adam Hertz, who created all these characters all way back when in the 1990s. But Jim's dad, or again in this movie, Noah Levinstein, is given an opportunity to deliver a monologue. And I have it in front of me, and it is absolutely one of the highlights of this And that's this movie in a nutshell. It goes from like necrophilia and bestial rape to this. You know what I mean? It's such a staggering roller coaster ride.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Levinstein, after successfully recompiling the Book of Sex, including a scene where inexplicably Tim Matheson plays a character named Carlito, which I thought was just like, why not? You know?
Yeah.
Jim's dad, when they have finally put back together the Book of Love, delivers the following monologue while standing atop a table. This is not a sex manual. It is a life manual. I've been married for 35 years, and not just because I'm this handsome dude who knows how to satisfy a woman. I've been married for 35 years because I love my wife, and I respect my wife. Whether it's Amsterdam or East Great Falls, it all comes down to this. If you're honest and treat a girl with respect, then whatever happens is meant to happen because it's all perfectly natural. Boys, I've prepared you for this quest. And before you lies the biggest test of your lives. This book is a powerful weapon. So use it for good, not evil.
Yeah, I'm going to use that when you get married as my speech.
You're going to leave, I assume, all the references to Amsterdam and East Great Falls. And
I mean, if you want. Yeah, I can change.
You could do like whether it's
East Hampton,
the Northeast Kingdom, or Lanesboro. And more like me and Allie specific.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'll write that down. Yeah, so I guess when you say he's smooth, I don't think he was very smooth in the first three movies. And that was for me, like my intro to Jim's dad as a character was his like bumbling around stuff. And I found his characters to be much more confident in the direct-to-DVD movies. But it was refreshing to have him back on my team. It was nice for him to like really spell out where the other movies were so obviously anti-woman and anti-consent. This movie is like back to just like having a whole speech by our king and God man, just who says, no, you must be generous, loving, and honest. And everything after that is fine. And it's a really nice message. It's not a great movie, but it's you can't argue with it and you don't want to. And it's Jim's dad and he's back.
Yeah. And again, I think certainly after the franchise low of Beta House, it was very comforting to have him really put a very fine point on this is how we should behave, everybody, because Beta House just evolves into an absolute nightmare.
It's a weird shift.
The thing about these movies that's so funny, specifically this one and Beta House, is that sometimes there's like you read about a really disturbing movie and you maybe don't want to watch it, but you read the Wikipedia description.
Yeah. Like,
I've never seen a Serbian movie. I don't need to. It's fine. My life is complicated enough already. But I've wanted to understand why it's considered, so upsetting. So I've read the Wikipedia. You could write these movies like a Serbian movie in, like, description alone. Like, if you took all of the tone out of much of this.
Right.
Like, it sounds like this sort of, like, these twisted horror. Like, it just sounds so fucked up on the page.
That's a great way to put sort of what I've been talking about this whole episode, was that they have unintentionally stumbled upon horror and just very poorly tried to pass it off as comedy.
And that's why this one suffers the most for me, because with Beta House, it just settles into this like sub-gutter level nightmare and never budges. We never even come close to escaping that hell. This just vacillates back and forth and back and forth. And again, those two sharp moments of humor, so genuinely upsetting and crude in like the purest sense of the term, like that really hit me harder than Beta House because of how weird it was and how out of place it felt. So I'm just saying it left me emotionally confused, like a bad relationship, going from a Jim's dad's monologue about respect and love to Stifler being fucked by a non-existent moose while a crowd of people like essentially cheer as he's raped and humiliated. So like that was harder for me to handle for sheer shock value than Beta House, which was just depressing from start to finish.
Yes, I think that's accurate. Beta House has nothing that's particularly like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm watching this, because the whole movie is at a level where it doesn't need to get, like the whole movie is there. Where here it does have these spikes. But I think for me, like, honestly, these have the best female characters, I think, since the first one. And maybe, I don't know, we've talked about this before. Like, there are great female characters in these movies. Heidi's awesome. I think she's a really great character. I think Ashley's a good character. And I think Imogen's a fun character. Like, I think all these women do work well on their own, and they talk to each other. I think earlier you said they didn't really have much going on, but they do. Like, there seems like they're talking to each other, and they're not just like in the last one where they're like, "Oh, you should get fucked," just because. Like, they have that weird conversation in the bathroom where they're all just using the mirrors. I don't know. When I go to the bathroom, I just piss and leave. But I guess
you're not a high school girl, so there could be some differences in your experience. Food for thought.
Yeah. Where like one of them's like, "Oh, you should have sex." She's like, "Well, no, I don't really want to." She's like, "Yeah, it's complicated." They actually have a conversation. It's not just intimidation, and they're all confused and they don't really know what they want. And through the course of the movie, like, I really like the scene where she's talking about just wanting to get fucked, and obviously he wants to fuck her, but then we find out that she wants to fuck him, and he's like, "Well, why didn't you say anything?" And she says, "Well, why didn't you say anything?" And this is like what's been lacking in these movies for so long is characters talking to each other in a way that people would talk to each other about shit. Like when the three boys are talking about the Book of Love and talking about wanting to get fucked and talking about all these plans together and reconstructing it, it's like these are actually characters doing something and talking to each other like friends with. And I believed, as boring as the characters are and sort of like as two-dimensional versions of ones from the first movie, I believed that these people would talk to each other like that, and I was like invested in watching them do what they were doing.
You know, I think let's put a cap on the film discussion at this point. I think that's a nice upbeat way of ending it. I agree. It harkens back to the humanism of the first movies, and I like that. Now, we must ask the titular question, Charles. Now, this is a unique situation in our podcast history because we're now ending a very distinct chunk of a sub-franchise and returning to the main franchise. So in a way, I'm not sure whether or not it makes sense to ask when will it end about the next movie or the next direct-to-video movie, because obviously we're now jumping back into the main storyline.
Right.
But I just to cut through a lot of needlessly complicated bullshit, I'm excited to see American Reunion. I enjoyed the first three movies. Certainly this has been a hellish side road, and I'm very excited to I may be desperately optimistic that we can get back on track by going back to a bunch, like, as again, I've spoiled for myself. We're going to get Oz again. We're going to get Natasha Lyonne. A lot of the characters who were not in American Wedding are coming back for this. So, yeah, I've been looking forward to this. I've enjoyed the main movies. I can't believe this is the 8th one we're watching. Like, that's fucked up. But I am excited, I guess, to take one step closer to ending this. And now the stakes are really high. If this movie sucks, I'm just really going to be sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to think of the only other franchise that has been this long has been Fast and the Furious, which is like so convoluted. The characters are so connected. Everything is like so much going on. Every movie feels like it's doing bigger and bigger things. And this is also 8 parts, and it's like we've watched nothing. And yet
we've watched so little. So little.
And yet
maybe the 9th one, the most recent one, which again came out this month. We're recording this in October 2020, so we can finally finish off our 9-part series, which is thrilling.
Right. And that one's going to be a Patreon only because it doesn't have Jim's dad in it.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's really not a part of the canon, I don't think.
You'll have to tune into the Patreon to find out the thrilling conclusion, the 9th installment in the American Pie universe. Okay, so are you asking when will it end? Let's just...
No, I'm not asking when will it end because I think the graph is heading in the right direction, and I'm hopeful. It is weird. We decided to watch these in year of release rather than in like 2 parts, and I think we did the right choice. We're still... I feel like this brought us back, sort of like a Rogue One style. You know, there was pie in it. There was fucking bread. There was... things that reminded me, there was Jim's dad, things that reminded me of the first movie, and it's a really nice segue. It's as though you watched Rogue One and then immediately, honestly, started to talk about Star Wars, but like Beta House and Naked Mile are like, you know, Sith and clones. And then we get Rogue One to bridge that gap from a true nightmare into something that we can fall back on. I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I love.
Yeah, we're building back steam, given that we know we are not done yet. It's nice that we're at this point because, wow, the lows have been so low. And Jesus Christ.
And to be honest, this had some very funny lines. I wrote down, like, I thought the joke were when he's like, oh, that was $149, but they're so small.
That was funny.
I laughed. That was a good joke. I loved the scene where he's like the weird fantasy from Lube where he's at the basketball game and then it goes to this photo shoot where the mascot in that weird like guy with a mustache riding a fake donkey was his assistant. I liked the way that there was confidence in the way they handled some of their jokes, and when they worked, I was laughing.
Well, like when Lube goes into his fantasy at the bordello and he goes, "How long was they out for?" And the guy goes, only about 8 seconds.
Yeah,
it was like a nice little wink. The one thing I didn't laugh as much as you did. The one part I truly laughed at is Lube is drawing a nude portrait of Ashley, and his teacher chides him, the great Curtis Armstrong, who's a character actor you've seen in a million movies, chides him for doing that, and then goes back to his desk to compare Lube's naked drawing of Ashley with his much worse naked drawing of Ashley. That's a good bit. That was very funny.
Also continues because he then throws away his own and keeps
Lube's in his briefcase. Yes, good stuff.
Pretty good.
MVP of the movie.
I got mine. You want to try to do a 1, 2, 3 thing, or you want to just do it separately? Because they're probably going to be different.
They're going to be different. I'll go first.
Okay.
I thought that Rob's mom was great. I'm giving it to Rob's mom. I like that there's like finally a Jim's dad like female corollary where she's just trying to be cool and supportive of her shitty son's awful sexual experiences and makes him coffee when he's hungover, touches his cum-encrusted sock, tries to be supportive of him even though she's watched him vomit on a woman while having sex, and their dog lick his dick. Oh, we never talked about that. The opening humiliation.
Yeah.
Where he's fucking a chunky peanut butter sandwich and a dog licks his dick. Yeah.
Why chunky? Would you ever fuck a chunky peanut butter?
That's what a vagina feels like. So I like that his mom was like sort of doing her best to be cool and supportive. And I think she sold that way better than anyone else needed to. So I'm giving her my MVP pick.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I'm also choosing a character who was really supportive and reminded me a lot of the first franchise. Like, you have this character that, in the face of a child growing up, trying to explore his sexuality. I mean, she's there to touch his cum-encrusted sock. She's there to, make sure that the videos on the internet don't get him down. Like, she makes him coffee when he's hungover. She tells him, like, it's okay if you get drunk. It's okay, just don't drive. All these things that, they're great. She was a great character. I'm giving my pick to Rob's mom.
Yeah, that's a strong pick.
Yeah. I
see. I understand. Yeah. Rob's mom. Good on you.
No, she was great. And what's her name? Arquette. She fucking rules. She's a great...
Rosanna Arquette, I believe. Rosanna Arquette?
She is... What a weird slumming it character for her. Like, she's been in some very good movies.
Rosanna Arquette, yeah.
She's been in some bad movies. She has a long, pretty cool career, and I don't know what happened that she chose to be in American Pie Presents: The Book of Love. But I'm glad she did.
She has a BAFTA. She's been in After Hours, Pulp Fiction, the original Crash. Also, did you notice that looking over Melanie Papalia's career, this is, of course, Dana in Book of Love, she plays a character called Hooker in Hell or High Water, a movie that you and I both enjoy.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. I was sort of scrolling around when I knew she looked familiar, and I was like, oh, yeah. So, yeah, the cast in this is very strange. And I think that's also part of why it works. As bad as, as whether we want to argue it or not, Lube's character, I like the actor who played Lube. I even watched some really dumb short film because he was in it. It's called Ham Sandwich. You can watch it on Vimeo or something, and it's really bad. It's about a guy who gets a ham sandwich that whenever he takes a bite, he goes further and further back in time.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a cool premise, except it's just used to watch a man like sexually assault women and then just go back and kill the Earl of Sandwich.
Yeah, well, you made it sound bad now. He also played live-action Cartman in South Park in 2012. Good for you. All right, so thus concludes our episode on American Pie Presents: The Book of Love. A real mixed bag here. I really feel like this needs to end soon. It's not going to end immediately. Please come back and join us for the exciting conclusion of the Jim's Dad portion of the fucking Pieverse. Of course, God, my brain is melted from this experience. It's just been, This was a mistake.
It's all right. Just stop talking.
Okay. And we're done.
You did. Congratulations.
Okay, let's...
I've been recording all of this, so if we...
I wasn't recording all that.
Do need a pad Oh.
Okay, now we're recording pre-roll. This is good stuff. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can see it too. So it must be a Facebook Messenger thing.
Sure. Happy to blame it on the Zuck. Buddy, are you ready to get into it? We're so close to being done with these motherfucking movies. Holy shit.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm so happy. This is the last bad one.
I mean, God willing.
I hope so. Oz will be in the next one, and I'll be happy.
Great.